Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. My name's Dennis Hanwell. I'm the mayor for the city of Medina, and I appreciate you taking the time and coming today for this program. And we thank the panelists as well for coming and sharing your knowledge here with us. So the purpose of this program is in anticipation of opening the county's first recovery center to educate on recovery and recovery centers in general. So the panel is from the Ohio Citizens Advocates for Addiction and Recovery. And Ohio Citizens Advocates for Addiction and Recovery is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to creating positive social change in Ohio. They are committed to advocating for those in need of and seeking recovery and fighting against the stigma and discrimination associated with the addiction. So I will turn it over to Sarah. And I think Jared from the cable office asked that when each of you speak that we use the microphone, because we're videotaping this for the folks that couldn't make the meeting, but we need all of the questions from here and the panelists to use the microphone there. Okay? Thank you. Welcome.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Erin Thompson. I'm the Executive Director for Ohio Citizen Advocates for Addiction Recovery. That is super, super long name. Call it O.C.A.A.R for short. We all know what we're talking about here. So like the mayor said, we are a nonprofit organization. We are based in Columbus, but we are a statewide organization. So I travel the state and do awesome things like this and talk to awesome people like you guys that are interested in possibly doing some more with the recovery community in your guys' community. We are a nonprofit that does work in advocacy. We kind of have three different pillars of our work. And you'll kind of hear this throughout the theme of today. Advocacy is one of our pillars. We do a lot of public education, things like this today. And then we do what we call indirect support services. So we don't do I don't do one-on-one support services with the recovery community, but we do a lot of community development and community support across the state to help people across the state then do direct service with individuals in recovery. Our mission is to support and advocate for those seeking in recovery, eliminate stigma and discrimination, educate the public, and eliminate barriers to recovery. So we are all about recovery, and I will let my board introduce themselves, but I have the super awesome experience of working with these three amazing advocates, and they are actually homegrown Medina-ites. Is that what you guys call yourselves? Yeah. I feel like that's what you call yourselves, but I am not from Medina. I grew up in Columbus area. So I will go ahead and let my board introduce themselves to you all.
Okay. Try not to make big plans. My name is Cindy Boone McGowan. I say Boone because that's my maiden name, and I have lived in this community for almost 54 years, which means I'm almost 54. I live in Seville, Ohio. I live on property that's been in my family for 5 generations, so it's real important to me. This community is really important to me. And I feel privileged to live here, to call this place home, and to actually work here. I work here. I am a clinical counselor and a chemical dependency counselor at Cornerstone Psychological and Counseling Services. And I also am a person who began her journey on a pathway to recovery on Labor Day in 1987, and it's been an incredible journey, and I feel privileged to be a part of a statewide organization that really I wanted to be involved with because of my sense of a need to create and promote a sense of hope and healing, and to help others who may still be suffering from the disease of chemical dependency to recover. And so, I graduated from Cloverleaf High School in 1982, and my kids all still go to there. So I'm going to pass it on.
Thank you, Cindy. My name is Dave Caperton, and I'm also a native Medina person. I've lived here for the bulk of almost 72 years now. I was one of the first children born in Medina Hospital, so I've got deep roots here. I'm a person in long-term recovery. This coming September, if things go as planned, I will celebrate 40 years of recovery. And I'm committed to my community. I'm committed to the recovery program in Medina County and wherever else I can be of help. I've been honored to participate in the O.C.A.A.R board for, I believe, the last 6 years. I'm currently vice president of O.C.A.A.R. I've also been privileged to participate in the Citizens Planning Council, which we advise Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services, and I'm chairman of that board. So I've been given a lot of privilege and a lot of responsibility, and I'm very grateful for that. I have the honor to work with the people who are in Medina County Jail that are seeking recovery. If they're reaching out for help, I want to be there to help them. And when they leave the jail, I follow through and we do a transitional work with them as best we can, as much as they're willing to. I will give them as much time as they need. We're very fortunate we have other people here that also work with people that come out of the jail in transition, people who come out of the common police court system. We have a lot of people who are willing and able to pass on the gift they've been given, and that's a gift of sobriety and recovery. And if you've never been an addicted person, you don't know what a wonderful gift it is to be set free from that. It gave me a freedom that I never thought I could experience, and I'm very grateful for that. And I will turn it over to Stephanie.
My name is Bethany Robinson, and I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I've been in recovery for 8.5 years. I am a citizen of Medina. I live in the historic neighborhood. I live over on Liberty Street. Born and raised here. Since I've been in recovery for the last 8.5 years, I spent about 7 of those years public speaking, sharing my story of recovery, my struggle with addiction, with over, I would say, 75,000 people. Most of those are local adolescents. So, the teenagers of the world who know everything and don't care what you have to say. So they are a tough crowd. But giving them hope and giving them inspiration that they can live a different life. I've been on the O.C.A.A.R board for a couple of years now. I've also helped with Robbie's Voice, a local organization. And this past year, I started my own business and became a certified peer support specialist, which means I do recovery coaching. So I work with a handful of local addicts, modeling recovery, helping them engage in the community, give back to the community, and become the contributing members of society that they desire and that they can be. At this point, I'm going to pass it over for a statement from Robbie's Voice.
Hello, I'm Judge Kimbler, and I have the privilege of reading a statement on behalf of Robert Brandt. For those who do not know Rob Brandt, he is the operating vice president of the nonprofit Robbie's Voice, which is an organization that works on educational programs to battle substance addiction. Robbie's Voice is a member of the newly formed Medina County Opiate Task Force. On behalf of Mr. Brandt, I wanted to take a moment and make sure that our Robbie's Voice official support for the Medina County Center for Continued Recovery Project was communicated, and to reinforce our commitment to being a part of this program. Robbie had a vision to create a place where those in recovery could come together and support each other through the challenges. He was not referring to NA or AA or HA meetings, but rather a community where the collective strength of those in recovery would create a wall of momentum that would save lives. He had this vision, this dream, in 2011 when he battled this disease. He knew then what we did not. Extended support would be the key to sustained recovery. What we know today is that these programs are paramount to beating the current epidemic we face in our cities, our state, and our nation, especially with Ohio leading the nation in overdose deaths. These programs have shown results that treatment alone has not been able to attain, creating long-term recovery and ultimately strengthening families and communities. 2 years ago, we looked at relapse versus recovery. We asked ourselves some very difficult why questions. We believed then that continuing to treat a chronic disease with the same methodology that we treat acute diseases would continue to provide the same results, and we have been proven right. We recognize that the areas having success not only provided continued support, but recognized those in recovery as people with value, people with lives that mattered. Accordingly, we planned and last year announced our intention to develop a Center for Continued Recovery. Now, through this partnership, we will be able to be part of that reality. God always has a plan, and now we see that plan coming together. Robbie's vision, the vision of the Medina County Drug Court, and now the availability of this property all coming together in one moment, one place, to create something that will become a model for our state and nation. In a few years, when we look back at how we beat this epidemic, we will see history that started in the historic district of Medina, Ohio. God bless Rob Brandt, founder, Robbie's Voice.
Thanks. My name is Judge Chris Collier, and I have a series of questions that some of the people in this room have asked me, and I'm the last person in the world to be able to answer them. And I want to address them to the panel if you'll do so. And understanding that this is being recorded, and other people are going to hear and listen and try to understand. Can I get down to the real basic things? I work in the court. Judge Kimbler works in the court. Many of the folks here are people who work in the court or have some familiarity with it. But how about the ones who don't? What's recovery? When we're talking about a recovery center, what is recovery? Can somebody give me an answer?
Well, I'll start first. Why don't we start about some myths of recovery first? Because I think it's good to start with a place of...
You're going to tell me what it's not. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, because sometimes that's a better place to start, because there's a lot of myths of what it looks like. And honestly, I can speak on that because I am a myth. I often hear, well, you don't look like a person in recovery. You know, I didn't think like addiction happened to people like you. You don't look like a drug addict. You seem so perfect when you were younger. You know, I was born and raised in Medina. I was on 3 varsity sports teams. I was in honors classes. I was on the homecoming court. I was this golden child. Nobody thought that I had a problem. I went and got a 4-year degree from Bowling Green, eventually ended up in corporate America where I earned 6 figures. I couldn't possibly have a drug problem. But I was a functioning, semi-functioning drug addict and alcoholic. I was sick and nobody knew. They didn't know because on the outside I wore a mask where I thought I had it all together. And stigma promotes that. We think we know what it looks like. We think it has a face, it has an identity, but we don't know. And what's the big deal about stigma? Stigma and myths are powerful and they're dangerous because they lead to discrimination. They lead to keeping people from resources. And when we're doing that, when we talk about addiction and keeping people from resources, we know that that can ultimately lead to death. So what are some common myths? Number 1, we hear it all the time. Addiction is a choice. You choose to be a drug addict. You choose to be an alcoholic. We don't choose to become addicted. According to Psychology Today, brain imaging studies show that there's a difference in brains of a person that's addicted and non-addicted, and that there's neurobiological differences. And once a person starts using drugs, prolonged drug use can impact areas of their brain that control impulses, that control feelings, that control their rewards, that knowing what's right and wrong. Our brains are different. We have a disease. And the Medical Association recognized addiction as a disease rather than a moral defect back in 1956. Addiction is a disease. Well, addicts can't be productive members of society. That's not true. I was in active addiction and I was what you call a functioning, productive member of society. Many believe that all addicts are unemployed, that we're homeless, that we live under bridges, that we're criminals. That's not what it looks like. Sometimes that's what addiction can look like, but oftentimes we're the people that you see on the street. We're going to work, we have jobs, we're raising our families, but we have this hidden secret, this disease that we're struggling with behind closed doors. Addicts can quit whenever they want. Just stop. What's the big deal? I've heard it a million times. Addiction is obsessive and compulsive in nature. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, they define addiction as a chronic relapsing brain disease that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. We have a disease. Oh, well, you know what? Those addicts, they're just weak. They're uneducated. They're morally flawed. They just don't have the willpower. Yeah, I've heard that a lot. And if you know me, I'm strong. I'm educated. I have strong morals, and trust me, I have a lot of willpower. But it's not enough to beat a disease. Addiction is not a matter of willpower. The AMA, the American Medical Association, again, recognized it as a disease. It's not a moral defect. And addiction does not discriminate. It affects the lives of all people, regardless of your education. Addiction affects everyone. If a doctor prescribes it, it can't be addicting, right? We've heard it before. Prescription drugs can be just as addicting as street drugs. And often you'll hear most of our current heroin users started in a doctor's office. Maybe they got their wisdom teeth pulled. Maybe they had knee surgery. Or actually, maybe they were just at the dentist and just had a little bit of tooth pain. All of a sudden, they're prescribed an opiate, and then before you know it, they're addicted because their brain is different than a brain of a person not addicted. And the AMA also says that half of it is genetics as well. So you can blame my mom and dad, but I mean, addiction has a face, right? Well, it looks a certain way. I hear it all the time, like, well, people don't have teeth, they're dirty, all of this stuff. That is not true. That is a myth. Addiction, again, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter how big your house is. It doesn't matter the job you have, the kind of car you drive. They don't care if you're a male, if you're a female. Addiction doesn't care. Addiction touches all of us. It doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't say, oh, well, this city, that's full of addicts, but we're going to skip over this nice city, right? No, every city is impacted. Every neighborhood, every community is impacted. There's nothing that family and friends can do to help somebody that's an addict. They're a lost cause. That's a myth. We can help addicts. Recovery is possible. Ultimately, as an addict in recovery, I have to make the choice. You can't do it for me, right? But that's a lot of things in life. But family and friends can help. My family, they got engaged in their own recovery program because we believe addiction is a family disease. It just doesn't affect one person. It affects the entire family. And we're seeing in our community, in our state, in our country, addiction just doesn't impact one person. It impacts a community. It impacts a state. It impacts a nation. And if you turn on your news, you're going to see that every single day. Treatment doesn't work. If it doesn't work once, it's not going to work at all. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services states, like virtually any other medical treatment, addiction treatment cannot guarantee lifelong health. Although nearly 1/3 of clients achieve abstinence from their first treatment attempt, relapse is part of recovery. In a lot of diseases, a lot of health issues you have to have continuous treatment. Addiction is no different. Again, treatment doesn't work. It's just not true. Treatment can be highly effective. It's not a cure. We haven't found a cure for addiction yet. But it's a chronic disease and it needs treatment. It is possible for people to continue to get better and to continue to struggle, just like a diabetic would have to continue to maintain their blood sugar levels. They would continue to have to go to a doctor. Addiction is the same way. A lot of addicts are just hopeless. They can't recover. There is no such thing as a lost cause in our world. If there is breath, there is hope. People can and do recover, but the key is that there's access to treatment and to recovery centers like the one coming to Medina. We need places to go to be able to recover. Today, more than 22 million people are struggling with addiction. 45 million people are impacted. What we don't hear about is there are 23 million people in active recovery today. But because of shame and stigma, many people stay silent. Many people don't get the help they need because of fear of judgment, fear their communities will treat them like animals, fear that society will tell them they just deserve to die, fear that people will say you don't deserve a second chance, fear that people will say you don't deserve help. It's your choice. I'm lucky I got that second chance. I'm lucky that stigma doesn't keep me quiet, but it's not easy. I'm lucky because today I get to be a voice for those who cannot. And today, yeah, I'm a recovering addict, but I'm also a mom. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a business owner, I'm a full-time employee, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a homeowner, I'm your neighbor. Don't be fooled by these myths. Look at me. I am recovery. We are all recovery. So what is recovery?
Yep.
Okay. What are my cheaters? I'm going to talk a little bit about the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration definition of recovery, and then I'm going to share a little bit about lived experience and what that means as far as recovery goes. So SAMHSA, which is a federal government organization devoted to substance abuse and mental health services, in 2010 came up with what they called a working definition of recovery. Simply because at the federal level, they came to understand that there were a lot of jargon going back and forth. And they wanted to create a unified definition that would help, first and foremost, create access to care for people who needed mental health and substance abuse services. So their definition of recovery is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Notice it doesn't say anything about somebody stops drinking or quit smoking pot or stops shooting up. It's very broad to be inclusive of both mental health and substance use disorders. I often say for folks that have a hard time grasping, why don't they just stop, that recovery is less like flipping a light switch. It's much more like one of those dimmer switches where you kind of gradually help turn the light on. Many people conclude that getting better means we just got to stop the behavior. In truth, recovery from a substance use disorder is much more about fundamental changes that take place inside that person that help them then to no longer need to engage in the behaviors that we characteristically think of as a substance use disorder. Drinking, smoking marijuana, smoking crack. And so a lot of times you can't see it. And just like Stephanie shared about addiction, we think we can identify it. When I started down my pathway towards recovery, I had just been accepted into graduate school. I was not only accepted into graduate school, I got a tuition scholarship because my grade point average, I'd never gotten anything other than an A. And yet I was in the midst of struggling with an addictive disorder. So what we think of as addiction, again, what do we think of as recovery? Recovery is lifestyle changes. All too often, again, we focused on the symptom. And having a recovery focus is a major shift in the conversation. It's a shift in that focusing on recovery, just like if you think about if anybody's ever had a loved one who is affected by cancer. Cancer folks start to shift in their dialogue and their treatment as I am a survivor. I'm wanting to focus on living, not on dying. The focus shift on recovery is focused on living. It's focused on those graduated steps that people take, getting closer and closer to that life where they are free of the symptoms of this disease. As a clinician, I commonly explain to folks that, recovery is about you get to a place where you are no longer experiencing the symptoms. But along the way, we can't just flip a light switch. So there's trial and error. There's learning that takes place. And in order for that learning to take place, SAMHSA talked about 4 dimensions. Health, again, the big piece is managing or overcoming one's disease or symptoms. In what other chronic illness do we apply treatment and then take it away when the symptoms are better? That's backwards thinking. Recovery focus says we don't take the treatment and the stuff that works away. We help people integrate that so that it becomes a part of their lifestyle, such that they arrive at a place in life where the thought of using or picking up again doesn't even occur to them because they have skills and resources that work for them way better than alcohol or other drugs ever did. And it's a tremendous place to be, but it is a journey, and it is more a process than an event. And yes, people slip on the way, and yet a slip does not mean that you've gone all the way back, right? I often say, I tripped a few times on the stairs, but I didn't fall all the way back down to the basement. Kept on climbing. And that's what recovery is about. So there is a health component. It's about making different choices, healthier choices. There is a living or a home environment component to recovery. You know, how can we expect someone with chronic illness? My dad had hypertension. Now, the doctors, I'm sure, gave him a diet to follow. But had my mom not been committed to helping him with that, eliminating salt from everything that she made and changing products that she purchased, he wouldn't have done that on his own. We changed our home life to support my dad's hypertension. He didn't quit smoking right away. You know, does that mean treatment failed? No, it means it was a process, because hypertension is another chronic illness that people experience. But the home is a really important component. We have recovery homes in this county, places like Kathy's House. That's what Kathy's House is. It is a safe and stable environment for someone who is very new in the recovery process, because when you're just getting started, there's an awful lot to learn, and you need much more intense support than when you've had 40 years of recovery. So home is an important part. Having a sense of purpose. You know, when you have struggled with an addiction, you don't have any sense of purpose. Stephanie used the words hopeless. Hopeless, despairing, ashamed. In my office, I've never heard people say such harsh things about themselves, things that they would never say to another human being because of their shame, because they do believe the myths that this is my fault. If only I had more self-control. I'm letting everyone down. I'm such a disappointment. Shifting to a recovery focus gives people a sense of hope. It does not absolve them of responsibility. When I came to terms with understanding that I had an illness that was treatable, I understood it's not anybody's fault, including mine, but it is my responsibility. So recovery is very much about taking a responsibility and finding meaning and purpose from that responsibility. Getting involved, getting a job, volunteering, resuming roles that you have always wanted to do, didn't know you could do because of your disease, and becoming independent and having the resources to participate in the community. And last, fourth dimension would be a community. If there is any one thing that is critical to recovery, it is community. It is crucial. Many, many times I work with folks, and myself included. I was smart. I was going to get what you needed. I went to that meeting. I know everything you got to do. I'm going to do it myself. I frequently tell folks that, boy, if I had a nickel for every person who said, yeah, but I'm going to do this on my own, boy, I could have retired 20 years ago. Actually, you can't. There's a reason there are people in the universe, and part of it is to be able to reach out and have support.
Okay,
we need that support.
Yeah, okay, so recovery centers are one of the things that you're talking about. Are there myths associated with these recovery centers as well that you've seen in your practice?
Yes. Actually, I would even say, just from within the past week, working in the business, I'm aware of a lot of stuff. There's a lot of language being tossed around. What's the difference between a drug treatment facility, an outpatient versus inpatient, group home versus what, recovery home? Right, this whole idea of a recovery community organization is really new. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the state of Ohio, we only have about 11? Yeah. One up in Sandusky, that is indeed in a historic district in Sandusky, not a town that dissimilar from downtown Medina. And that's called Sandusky Artisans. Look them up. It's a great resource, community hub. But myths about community center. First of all, I think we just have to clarify what the heck that is, because it's new language. A recovery center, the way I want to explain it, I think of other centers that have a focal population. We're just down the street from the Medina office for older adults and folks with developmental disabilities. That is a center, a hub, if you would, for resources, activities that are geared towards older adults and people with disabilities. It's the go-to place. right? You don't have to be court-ordered. You can just be a community citizen. You don't have to be disabled. You don't even have to be like really, really old, whatever that means. You can just go. Dave could go there. Sorry, Dave. I love ya.
What are some of the myths, though, just recovery?
Okay. So whenever you bring up anything about recovery or anything that relates to addiction, I think that is scary. And so I think some of the concerns have to do with this will cause an increase maybe in crime. The truth is, with the studies that are available, there isn't evidence for an increase in crime in areas. And this is research that's done on drug treatment centers. We're not talking about a treatment center. We are talking about a hub for community activity that's directed towards a recovering population, much like the senior center, much like Stewart's Caring Place. That's a community center for people who have cancer, whose family members are dealing with cancer. So it's a hub for that kind of activity. In fact, the studies that have looked at issues around drug treatment facilities suggest that really what increases crime is being in an area where there is liquor stores, convenience stores, definitely increase the rate of crime, but not drug treatment facilities and certainly not a recovery center.
Help me out for just 1 second. I want to stop and tell me the difference between the two. What's a recovery center? What's a drug treatment center? What are the differences?
Well, you want to answer that or you want me? I'm a drug treatment provider, if you would. Cornerstone Psychological and Counseling Services is what you would call a private, meaning we don't receive any government funding. We only use private insurance. Outpatient, which means we don't keep people there. I see people once a week or less often, so that's outpatient. Treatment facility. We provide counseling services. I see people for, on average, 45 to 60 minutes for a session. That's one level of care. Licata, just up the street from Cornerstone, is another type of outpatient. Now, they are very specific. They're exclusively devoted to substance abuse treatment, but they have intensive outpatient treatment, which means people go several times a week. Again, they don't stay there. There's no medicine dispensed to them. They go there for outpatient counseling or group therapy. There are family support groups there. Another kind of treatment facility might be medication, where someone goes to receive medication, whether it's for a mood disorder, whether it's for medication-assisted therapy, which is an important component of addiction to heroin or opiates. Our recovery center won't be any of those things. It is a community hub, a place where recovering people can go to get job skills, to connect with others in recovery, receive support, creative arts. But I'm getting ahead of myself because we'll talk about what a recovery center, what possibilities might be there. There is substantial evidence that providing, and I would add, we have lots of treatment resources in our county. What we don't have is a recovery-focused resource specifically to provide these kinds of community-based, interactive, get involved, find a purpose, get training, get connected, resume, and function well in society type services in our county.
Excellent. Okay, so what's a recovery community organization? What does that mean?
I think that's you.
Is that you?
That's me.
Good.
I gotta speak now.
You're the Columbusite, aren't you?
Columbusite, yeah. Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna have to take that back. So there's a couple different terms that get thrown around, and I apologize, I get the really dry, boring part, so I'm gonna try to make this a little bit more fun, but recovery community organization is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and recovery community center, and they're actually kind of two different things. And they do a lot of the same things, but I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of why they're different. So we at O.C.A.A.R, I get the super awesome privilege of working with around 11 to 13 different recovery community organizations around the state. And we just recently developed a network. So now not only are there local recovery community organizations in a lot of different cities around the state, but now they're connecting with each other and they're talking about resources that they've found. They're talking about ways to, leverage each other and to implement some strategies around how to be a stronger voice in their community. which is a super awesome thing. And I get the privilege of facilitating it and to listening to people that are doing really, really awesome work and boots on the ground in local communities around the state. So a recovery community organization is going to sound pretty similar to what I explained O.C.A.A.R does, because we are a recovery community organization. So we are a peer-ran organization, which means myself and all my board members are in recovery. So we come from that direct lived experience of being in recovery and running an organization that is now supporting people in recovery. We do advocacy work, we do public education, and we do support services. It's pretty similar to what I explained O.C.A.A.R does. That is what a recovery community organization does. Now, across the state, as we all know, Ohio is extremely diverse in population, in culture, in background, in multiple different cities. And so recovery, RCOs for short, because I'm going to stop saying recovery community organization, RCOs for short, they look very different across the state. So down in Dayton, for instance, we have a recovery community organization that does advocacy, education, and support services, but they don't have a physical location. Meaning, they have peer supporters that they have on staff that go out and speak with other people in the community and support people in their community. But they don't have a physical location. They rent spaces from different places. They do a lot of stuff in a local church, but there is no physical location. It's a great thing, but it causes a lot of barriers, because what happens with an RCO like that is people don't know that they exist. People don't know where to go when they want help. And so that is the biggest difference between a recovery community organization and a recovery community center. A community center is an actual physical location that people can go to, and they can seek services inside of this community. A couple other things about recovery community centers, which we will go over in a little bit too. It's not just support services for just recovery. One of the things that Cindy talked about is purpose, and getting back to our purpose in life. I heard somebody say today so eloquently that there's a lot of people in recovery who are beautiful works of art, but they've got a lot of dirt on them at the moment. And we've got to dust all of that away and give them the opportunity to get back to their purpose in life. And that's what this center does. It not only focuses on the recovery and supporting them and connecting them with people in recovery, but it also does job training. It does interview training. It does community outreach. We all know in the recovery community that service work is a huge piece of our recovery, and giving back to people that people so willingly gave to us. We are trying to give them back to the community. And so service work is a huge piece of a community center. So those are some of the terms that get thrown around a lot. And I just wanted to differentiate the two. An organization is, it not necessarily has a physical location or a space, but it does a lot of work. A center is an actual space, which is so needed, and we are trying to move all of our RCOs across the state from this kind of abstract thing to a concrete organization that works inside of a center that they can offer services to people.
And I'll do a brief, if you want to slide that down. I'll do a brief rundown. What exactly? Actually mean. So the center would be open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. So people in recovery would have access to the center. It will be a drop-in center, which does not exist in Medina County. That means this is a location that at any point during those working hours, you can drop in and receive services. There's also scheduled programming. So every month there'll be a calendar of events published. Some events will be weekly, some events will be monthly, some will be yearly, and then there'll be special events along the way. So somebody could drop in and they could receive peer support. They could, engage in pro-social activities, playing board games, hanging out with other people in recovery, engaging in conversation, maybe some job training, whatever it may be. Or they might be there for a specific event. So those are your two options. When they show up, they'll check into the center. And every person that utilizes the center will have to go
review and sign like an accountabilities sheet or something similar to that. That's what they call it at other centers. So this will be a list of expectations and rules at the center, just like any, center is going to have. People will check in, they'll sign in, and they can check out, they'll sign out. Again, people can come and go through those business hours as they please. And then there'll be the scheduling programming as well. So that's kind of a snapshot of like how it's actually going to work as far as on a daily basis.
Who runs this kind of organization? Who runs this kind of center?
I'll address that too.
Okay,
if
thanks.
That's all right. So who's gonna run this center is going to be, ideally it'll be peer-led. So it'll be people in recovery that will be leading a lot of the programming, but it's going to be a mix. There'll be a house manager, so there'll be one main person that is a paid staff, and then there'll be one or two other people that are part-time, because the house manager won't be there 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., right? And so other people will kind of fill in there on a part-time basis, but the house manager will be the main person. That'll be who's kind of coordinating activities, running daily operations, checking in and checking out. There'll be volunteers, so there'll be a combination of volunteers and paid staff, because the key to the center is, like I said, it's peer-led. We want people to find recovery and then give back, and that's part of how we live our lives in recovery. We are givers, and so once we find like our purpose, and once we see who's kind of like, okay, people have helped us, and now we're ready to give back. So we would expect that a lot of the maintaining of the property would be done by volunteers themselves. There'll also be a culinary piece, so in the future that'll produce jobs as well. So you're gonna have a combination of paid staff and then volunteers working. And as program develops, you'll have people leading groups, you'll have people doing one-on-one recovery coaching. We're looking to do training of peer support people, of training coaches, training local law enforcement, a place for the community to be able to come in as a resource. It just gives us a platform, right, to have recovery in our community and start to really kind of also at the same time fight the problem that we have right now with the drug epidemic. So that's a little bit of like who's going to run the center.
Okay, and who can use the center? Who can utilize the center? Who can visit the center? In other words, is this open to anybody? Can people just come in? How's that work?
Well, who can use it is people who are in recovery, obviously, would be the first people that we'd like to see in there. The community can use it. Anyone in the community who's interested in volunteering to help in the recovery program, certainly. People in the community can come in and gain knowledge and information about recovery. Recovery is what it's all about. We can have the best treatment centers in the world. We can have all the other things going on, but if we don't find recovery, it's all worthless. It's of no meaning whatsoever. I know in my own life, my recovery means everything to me. And, you might think, well, how does this work? How do you get a bunch of peers to run an organization that focuses on recovery? That's because everybody who's found recovery, those of us who've had any length of time in recovery, realize how precious it is. And we know that in order to keep it, we have to keep giving it away. That's how it works. And it's not a complex, this isn't rocket science. It works simply that way. How does it get maintained? How do you maintain order? I want to tell you something. There isn't anybody more disciplined than a bunch of alcoholics and addicts in recovery that want to keep what they have. Because we'll do anything to keep someone from taking it away from us. And it works well. Alcoholics Anonymous works on that same principle. And it has successfully for over 80 years. And it comes down to one alcoholic or one addict helping another. And if each one can reach one, we can work miracles in our community. And I know a lot of people in this room right now that are miracles, absolute certified miracles. And so, how do you get involved? Suit up and show up. That's how it works. And it's not a complicated process. We welcome all.
So when you say you welcome all, that means that you'll take volunteers from the community who have certain skills and who would be willing to offer those skills and talents to folks who are there. Is that kind of the vision that you have?
Right. That's why we call it a community. It takes a community to bring recovery into Medina. It's going to take the whole community effort. We've had too many years in this community where it has not been a community effort. It's been focused this direction or that direction, but we need to all come together, work together, and make it happen.
Well, I have to tell you, and one of the issues I know that a lot of the folks have who aren't necessarily associated with the recovery community is they see all of these problems and they're frustrated. They're frustrated with these things. And I guess what I'm hearing from you is okay, I understand you're frustrated. Look at the things that we can do to come together to help these folks who have this. And by the way, it's us helping them, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
That's the correct, that's it kind of in a nutshell.
All of you are asking at the same time. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's it in a nutshell, that we all come together, and if we do nothing, nothing happens, And another slogan we use, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So we're about change.
Okay, go ahead. I want to hear more about that. Go ahead, ma'am.
I was just going to say, research shows that in this country we have a recidivism rate of around 70%. So that means that people are chronically relapsing. And the biggest gap that we see is between treatment and recovery. And so that's why community centers are so crucial in communities, is because once somebody exits treatment and they leave treatment, and we say, change your people, places, and things, and then we send them right back to the friends that they came from, the home life that they came from, that's why relapse is happening, and that's why we need to connect them with recovery, and why a community center is so crucial to that recovery.
Okay, why do you think Medina is going to be better for this being there? What value are you going to add? And the microphone's moving down.
There it goes. So what can a recovery center add to a community? To start off, it adds hope. It creates awareness that recovery is possible. Recovery is alive. Recovery is happening. It keeps people in recovery. Like Sarah mentioned, research shows that when people get connected to a recovery community, it reduces the chance of relapse. So we're keeping people out of active addiction. That means several things. Number one, we can look at trying to reduce the number of overdoses. I don't know if anybody saw recently, but the number of overdoses this past year was 102% over the number the last year. We are not doing a good job. We are missing something. And I think we're missing a place for people to seek and to live in recovery. Also, this reduction in relapse can be reducing the number of people in active addiction on the street. So you're reducing crime, you're reducing the money that comes with active addiction, the cost to the community. We're creating safer and healthier communities. So we're having programming that's teaching people how to parent better, how to handle money better, how to be more employable. So we have skilled laborers, we're creating more jobs, we're creating more educated people, we're creating stronger families, we're creating stronger relationships, stronger marriages, stronger parents. We're giving our community a platform to be able to fight the drug epidemic. Where do you go right now if you think there's drug trafficking happening in your neighborhood? Who do you call? Where do you get educated? We need a place to be able to do that. We're going to have more financially responsible people, partnerships with local businesses, community resources. We're going to create people who have purpose-filled lives. We're going to have a place for families to go. Because anybody who works in this field or who is in recovery gets those calls at midnight of parents and mothers and fathers desperate because they don't know where to turn. Where do I go? Oh, there's a center. That's where you can go. And we're going to be there to help you, Medina, because it's happening in our families in Medina. Overall, what we're going to add to the community is we're going to create a community that sends a message that Medina cares about people. All people. People that are struggling with all sorts of diseases and illnesses, that we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to pretend it's happening, but that we're going to take it head on. And like Sarah said, be a leader not only in our state, but across the country. So that is what a center can add to our community.
Okay, and if you have any other things you want to talk about, that would be great, but maybe we can open it up and see if anybody's got any questions.
Sure.
So if anybody has any questions, these folks are are familiar with and are experts in certain areas about what a recovery community looks like, what a recovery center looks like, what this thing is supposed to be about, how it can work. And so if you have questions specifically for them, I'm glad to take them. You have to come up to the mic, though. Anybody? You are all so quiet. Okay, go ahead.
Judge, I don't have a question. I have a statement, actually, for Stephanie. I'd like you to clarify. You said 102%. That is in Medina County.
Yes.
Not statewide.
Yes, in
Right.
Medina County.
100% of what, Veronica?
Increase.
Increase in drug overdoses since 2016. Or 15. So we are
2000
actually on pace.
Yes. 2015, we had 128 overdoses. We had 20 deaths in Medina County. 2016, we had 258 overdoses, 34 deaths in Medina County. This center can impact those numbers directly.
And we are on pace to beat that this year.
Yes.
So I
not-
just wanted to
Is
clarify.
that in a bad way?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a number you want to
Yes.
beat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're moving in the wrong direction right now. So does anybody have any questions? Can you go to the mic though, just because they're recording?
So what I'm understanding, this is going to be a hub. Is that what my understanding is? It's not just going to be this location, but it could be other locations right around that physical area?
No, it's going to be just one location.
Okay, because when I hear the word hub, that leads me that you're going to
No,
stand out
sorry,
and
that
be
was
in one physical
yeah,
location.
That was communicated as like a central place for people seeking recovery.
But just that one
and
physical building.
recovery services.
My concern is that those 2 or 3 streets right there, whether they're historic or not, that those 2 or 3 streets are very weak already in the neighborhood. They're not very it's not a strengthful neighborhood. We're working, we're trying to get those 2 or 3 streets a little more healthy. And my concern is we're gonna get a little oversaturated on those 2 or 3 streets.
And I hear your concern.
I'm basing it, it's not from scared, it's not from fear, it's already the health of that neighborhood
Right, and
is already in question.
Yeah, and so when we talk about what this can add to a community, we're adding healthier people. We're adding healthier citizens. We're adding healthier families. Because right now, we have active addiction all over the city, in all of our neighborhoods, and by not creating a place where people can go to do recovery and to be in long-term recovery, people are at chance for relapse. And so the goal is to create a healthier environment. And as far as location goes, for us, we represent that advocacy group. So we support recovery centers in the hearts of communities. What Medina decides, that's Medina's, that's not what we're here to address today. We're here to talk about what is recovery, what a recovery center can add to your community, what they can add to the neighborhood, but the specifics of the specific neighborhood itself, it's just not what we're here for. There's been other venues for that. But
That's what my concern
Okay.
is. The people that are going to be coming in already are at risk, and they're coming to those 2 or 3 streets that already are weak in that area.
Okay, I can address the people in recovery.
And I think that maybe that's a really good point to bring up. The biggest difference between treatment and a recovery center is treatment is for people still in active addiction.
Correct, and I understand the difference. That's the recovery is probably one of the hardest parts because you're out in the community, you're moving around. And my concern is the success of everybody, the 2 or 3 streets right there, and the success of those individuals stopping into the recovery area. Those 2 or 3 neighborhoods are already at risk and are not a strength in the community, and we're working on that. And I'm afraid that when the recovery center comes in, we've already got other residents and locations that are already helping out. Now we have an additional one within spitting distance of the other ones, and we're getting a little overloaded on that end of town. And I'm afraid the overall success of everyone.
As far as I hear about, okay, so we're bringing recovering addicts into a neighborhood because that's part of your concern, right? Part of the concern is we're bringing people who are already vulnerable into
Correct.
a neighborhood that's not so great.
Correct.
By your words.
Right.
And the truth is that when we come into recovery, part of recovery is learning to do recovery on every street in every neighborhood. Do we avoid places that are going to trigger us? Yes, we do that. But we are people that are equipped to live in a society where, I mean, we live in a culture, we're surrounded by drugs and alcohol constantly. And so for people in recovery, I mean, I appreciate the concern, but that's something that we take very seriously. It's part of our programming. And what's great about the center is we'll be able to offer education to be able to combat a lot of that right on site. So we'll be able to have programming to teach people how to deal with triggers of different neighborhoods they might be in, things they might come across, because we can't live in a bubble.
But
You
I'm
know, we
looking
have
at
to do
the, I'm
recovery
looking
out
at the
loud.
bigger picture.
Right.
I'm not looking at just the facility that you're going to put your recovery center in. I'm looking at the other facilities that are already there physically on those 2 or 3 streets that are already helping. So you've got all of Medina County to select from, and now we're going to get yet another helping situation within, 1,000 square foot.
Yep.
That's a good point.
That's, I'm not saying please don't come here. What I'm saying, the location is already heavily saturated
Yeah.
in a neighborhood that is not healthy, so why would you go there?
Well, what's really cool about a recovery center is that all of a sudden you now have 150 volunteers that can help you clean up that area and then can help you volunteer to make that one of the better areas. But like Stephanie said, is I personally don't live here. I have no stake in the game on where the center is. My purpose of being here is to advocate of why a center is important.
Yeah.
And I think that the location can still be hashed out and talked about with the people that are behind it. But we really just want to educate today on what a center is, what it's not, and what it could look like in this community.
Right, well, like I said, I'm looking at the broader picture.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't want recovery. I completely understand what's going on. It's just within those 2 or 3 streets.
Okay.
Now we're adding another business, and so we'll just go from there.
Could I say
No,
that too?
let's just
Yeah, and let me stop for a second. Stop you. Stop. Her position is your recovery center, in no matter what location it is, weakens the neighborhood. That's what you, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that it was already a weak neighborhood that
The
could,
neighborhood is already.
and this will what?
And we've
make it
already got
worse?
Several,
And it'll make it worse?
I don't know, I don't say it's gonna make it worse, but it's already compromised.
Right.
Why add another stick?
Make
At
it-
this point, until we can maybe get the neighborhood up and running,
Right.
a little more stable.
So-
Then bring.
So it will make it
additional
unstable.
places in.
Unstable? That a recovery center will make a place unstable.
No, that is, no.
I'm saying it wrong. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The neighborhood is already in a weak state.
I understand.
The recovery, so now we're gonna add another business in where the people who are attending need a stronger, maybe, environment.
Well, I addressed
I don't
that.
know how else to,
Yeah.
I understand.
I feel like that it should be placed in a little stronger area, so you're not enticed. Let the neighborhood get up and get going with what we already are chewing on with the other facilities that are within those 2 or 3 streets.
And this is not-
Before we add another one, since we have all of Medina County to choose from, why do we keep going to those 2 or 3 streets, to those 2 or 3
Yeah,
areas?
go ahead.
It's just an oversaturation from my point of view for that little neighborhood.
Absolutely. I understand what you're saying. Anything on that? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm sure a lot of you recognize the haircut. I shaved my head for St. Baldrick's in March, so I'm growing back out. I don't want to talk about the location. I don't want to talk about it anymore. You know how I feel. You recognize my haircut. You know who I am. I'm just Jess. I see Zach's name up on the board. I know Zach. I went to his wedding. I know his story. I'm not an uncompassionate person. I don't know what video you're going to show, but I know he's involved in the Run for Recovery. Before any of this came on the table, I sponsored him. I shared it on my Facebook page. We're not bad people. We just don't know. And that's why we came here today, because we want to know. I totally understand this woman. She came up here and said, please don't attack me. And I felt extremely attacked last time. I was name called, and that makes me fearful. Can you appreciate my fear? When I heard people chuckling when she was talking, shaking their heads. No, you don't understand. I'm here to understand. I don't know. I know Zach's experience because I know him, and his story is incredibly moving. It's incredibly touching, and everybody here has something that they've related to. When you look at me, you don't know my story. You don't know anything about me, and I don't know anything about you. That's why I came today, because I want to know more. But the impression that I got before, you want to erase the stigma, but oh my gosh, I felt so defeated when I came home. I mean, a lot of you were there. People were yelling at me. I had my daughter on my lap. I had someone tell me that my daughter might grow up to be an addict. That wasn't the time or the place. Can you understand why I'm afraid and I don't know what's going on? That's why I'm glad you had this today. It has nothing to do with the location. I have questions about something that I don't understand. When you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, you can come in there. Anybody can come in there. You want people to be able to come in there as a resource to figure out what to do. What if somebody, and this is just a what if, these are the things that are going through my mind as someone who, like I said, I don't know a lot about it. I know Zach's experience. I know, people that I see on Facebook, their friends are dying. It's an awful, awful thing. No matter where this facility goes, if it's in my neighborhood, I will be there to help. It's not where I want it, but that's beside the point. You've demonstrated that this is a huge problem. None of us want to see it not go somewhere in Medina. You've pointed out what a problem it is. We all recognize what a problem it is. We're here to help. If it's not in my neighborhood, you will see me over there logging hours. I can't stress enough how I'm not a terrible person. I shave my head. I do work for the Salvation Army. I love this community. I'm involved in Main Street Medina. Every little thing I can do for this town, I want to do, but I'm scared. So I'm saying, you say anybody can come in here. What if somebody comes in and says, oh my gosh, I'm high. I don't know what to do. I have, we already find needles on the street.
Right.
That's scary. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but my kids are pretty smart. They might not pick it up, but what if my dog steps on it,
Right.
People are scared. I don't know.
Right.
So what if somebody comes in and they say, oh my gosh, I really, screwed up. I'm high. What do I do? That's scary to me.
Okay, can I
To
just-
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Please do.
First of all, I don't think anybody in this room is bad people and anything like that. I think we have a lot of strong, compassionate, passionate people, which thank God we have those in Medina County, because we are people that are standing up for what we believe in, and that's a beautiful thing, and that we are allowed to do that. I appreciate that. Like any center of this type, whether it be a center for senior citizens, a center for special needs, a center for, delinquent juveniles, whatever it may be, there will be protocols. So there will be crisis management protocols that will be put into place, and we're already researching that and looking at, okay, the other centers in the state, what is being, what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
We're lucky because we got a few other guinea pigs that we're able to work with and that we will work in collaboration with. So there'll be crisis management protocols. There'll also be protocols for if there are drugs or alcohol brought onto the premise, weapons, what will that look like?
Yeah.
So we will have protocols that will be accessible. So it'll be, this is how we are going to handle this. Every person that works at the center or volunteers at the center will be trained on those protocols. The police departments will also be involved in that process. So we don't take those things lightly because we are working with the population, right? That these are realistic. We can't be just pretend that's not going to happen.
It will probably.
And so, and we also have a community of people that
we're all about holding other people accountable too. So we police.
It's hard to understand
police
that.
ourselves well, but we
Yeah.
will have protocols in place. Like I said, crisis management, emergency protocols, drug and alcohol, weapon. Then just your normal things. If somebody, just like you would come in any business in this day and age, you know, what does an active shooter look like? What is it? All of these things. We will have all of those in place before opening our doors day one.
Now, would you be willing to share all those things if indeed it does go in this neighborhood? And I ask any neighborhood you would put it in, the people that are going to be in closest proximity to this, can you work with us or them or whoever it is and let us know? I want to feel safe.
Yes.
I want to know how these people are being vetted. Like, there's no minimum sobriety, from what I understand, to
Right.
enter the facility.
Right.
There's no probation, correct, there's no probation presence there. Nobody from the probation staff. Tier.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But if something goes awry,
Right.
so
Right,
who's
because
going to
that's-
be there to keep
that's-
me safe?
That's very realistic, and we've already also consulted with Kathy's house, so we're looking at their zero tolerance policy, which I've gotten already from Linda over there. So we're reviewing that along, like I said, with other centers, because that's the idea: is say, okay, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, and we would be more than willing to work with the neighborhood to make sure we are all working together to be able to give Medina County a resource that is desperately needed. And we want to love that building. We want to take care of it.
I want you to be the best neighbor possible. If you go
Right.
in there, I want to love what you're doing so much that I will try to get up,
And also have an open door where you are able, as a neighbor, to come to the center and say, hey, I've got this issue. Whatever it may be, you know, this isn't really working out. All right, let's sit down and be able to talk about it, because that's the goal here. The goal is to be able to lay a foundation, not only for us today, but future generations. You're a mom, I'm a mom. You know, I don't know what's gonna happen with these
Yeah.
kids. I'm trying my best, man,
Yeah.
but I want to be able to raise them in a community, in a place where they have access if they do need help. And the only way we're gonna do that is, like Dave said, if we come together, because that's the key. The key is that we come together. You're going to get a better understanding of us. We're going to get a better understanding of the neighborhood. And our hopes is that we would take a neighborhood and be able to take it to the next level, to be a part of that process. Not somebody that's going to bring you down, but to add value to your neighborhood, to add value to Medina, the city, and the county as a whole. So yes, we would love to work with you on that, and we would love for you to be a part of that process.
I guess the main point that I wanted to get across, lightly touching on location, but you already know how I stand. I would prefer it not be there. I'm not going to back down. My neighbors aren't going to back down. We are going to find a facility that works for all of us. Believe me when I say we want to help. We've been villainized. I mean, I've already gone over the horribleness of the meeting.
Right.
We want to help, and that's the point that I want to get across. We don't have to be, like we tried to have a meeting with Veronica and Judge Collier. We want to work together. We want to find something that will work for both of us, and that's the message I want to convey.
Okay, and us too.
It's never been about recovery for us. It's been about location.
Right.
And I just want to make sure everybody understands that we're normal people, and I'm sure you can understand my concerns. I'm a normal person. My neighborhood has been referred to as elite and well-to-do. You can look it up on the auditor's website. I paid $100,000 for my house, and it's not because I thought I was going to make it a fixer-upper and flip it, because that's what we could afford. And I thought, this is a nice house. This is where we're going to live. But we've put a lot of time and money, and so have my neighbors, and that's scary to us, to have our investments and our assets and our property values possibly be affected from a stigma that we have nothing to do with. Does that make sense?
Yep, I
You
hear
see where
you.
I'm coming
Yep.
from?
Can I say?
Yeah.
First of all, as an outside party that does a lot of these things, I really, really have to applaud you for being here today. We fear what we don't know, and
Absolutely.
that prevents a lot of people from even stepping foot in this door. So I really, really, really thank you for coming and being willing to learn about this, because I mean, I would have never in a million years dreamed that this would have been my career path. And this is where I am today. And I've learned so much about this community and my own recovery through things like this. And so I really, really thank you for being here and being willing to learn. The people, and this is not, the people that are wanting help are not the people that you should be afraid of. Those are the people that genuinely are seeking recovery and wanting to better their lives.
And I absolutely believe that statement. I can see how strongly you guys are holding on to your recovery. You won't do anything to jeopardize it. But I'm afraid of who, if I was a drug dealer, I'd be like, ripe for the picking. I'm going right over there. And I don't know that that's not true. And every single person in this room, and I am absolutely sure you will agree with me, is one choice away from changing their entire life. Every single person in here is one choice. One choice is all it takes. So somebody comes in there, I'm afraid of those people. They're already 2 streets away. I realize they're already there. They could be next door. But it's scary to me to have a large group of people congregating that could potentially draw more in. And, educate me. Tell me if that's not the case.
It's a valid concern, but again, it's for us to put protocols in place, to put procedures in place to be able to combat that, to not pretend, this is never going to happen, right? This is recovery. We understand these things. This is a realistic concern. Just like any business in Medina, somebody could walk in and make a bad decision that could threaten my health and my family's
Absolutely.
health. I live in the historic district. I live next to 2 commercially zoned properties. People can do what they want there. I don't, that's a hard thing. But we are going to take that on, and we are going to hear that concern and address it. And like I said, it's coming together, so making you guys a part of the process as well. And we have a community that is very good at, we take care of our own.
Absolutely. We take a lot of pride in our community too.
And very positive, and if people aren't doing the right thing, somebody's going to call you out in recovery really quick. And the idea is to strengthen the community, it's to strengthen the community, the recovery community and the community as a whole. So the concern is valid. The concern, and everyone needs to know this, our concern is very valid.
Thank you.
And so I think for us, again, it's about putting those procedures in place. So if this takes place, what does it look like? And how can we educate around it? How can we make people feel secure in the neighborhood and in the center? And I believe, I'm confident that we can achieve both of those simultaneously together.
Okay, so my next question is, I mentioned we had tried to set up a meeting with Veronica and Judge Collier so that we could work together and find the best solution for all of us. Is that meeting still a possibility? Can we make that happen?
Speaking for myself and then Judge Collier, absolutely, we can talk, for sure.
I mean, that's the best venue.
Judge Collier and I need more lead time than 24 hours to make a meeting. So we would appreciate.
No, that's fine. I mean, you tell us when you can meet and we will make it happen, because we are going into this wanting to find, honest to goodness, the best thing for all of us. It has never been an issue about whether there is a need for the facility. It has always been a matter of location. And I feel like at least the panel up front, I noticed a couple grumblings from the front row, but I think you believe that we want the best. And I think we can work together to find something that will work for all of us. I really do.
And my business cards are up here. Because I'm connected around the state, I would love to take any of you that are wanting to a community center in another area to see what it looks like. Because right now we're talking vague, kind of idealistic things that we don't really know.
And anything vague is scary. I mean, you can laugh at me, you can try to invalidate my concerns, but they're my feelings and they're valid, and I stand behind them.
Yes.
We appreciate you being here too. Yes.
And
Thank you.
I would be more than happy to take any of you that want to learn more and to see what it actually looks like in action.
Okay.
To up to Sandusky and see what they look like, because they're different climate and different culture, right? But they're right in the heart of their city, just like in the Medina area. So please, I take my business card and I'd be more than happy to take some people.
Moving forward, I guess the only thing I want to address before I sit back down and listen some more, I want to make that meeting happen. I think it's much easier for us to communicate in a small venue with a handful of people than the shouting match that happened last week. It's a very emotional issue on both sides. And like I said, yeah. So I would like us to all get together, a handful of people, a couple reps from my neighborhood, a couple of you guys. I would love to have you and Judge Collier there. I want us to figure out the best solution. I really do. For me, the best solution is not the proposed location, but maybe we can find one that'll work even better, is my hope.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Microphone.
Oops, there was two. Okay.
Hi. Okay, so not a great public speaker, just going to let you all know that now. But what I do want to say is I understand your point. I'm in recovery. I'm going on 3 years clean and sober. To feel what you felt last week, I have been feeling that for the last year.
And I'm sorry for that.
I am a local business owner. My clients come in and tell me how much they don't want this center. Not there, they didn't want Leucadia in our town. They didn't want this. We don't want those kind of people. I'm a mom. And I have people in front of my 10-year-old son calling me those kind of people. So am I angry? Sure. It's horrible. I know how you feel. But it happens to me all the time. This
That
happened.
doesn't make it any more or less right.
It doesn't. It's a bad thing. But look at me now. Look at everyone in this room now. We're just like you.
And yeah, exactly. I'm just like you too. I'm not villainizing you. I'm not.
But there are people who are doing it, as people are doing this
A couple
to
people in
you.
your group apologize
Okay.
to me.
Let's try to get back to.
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish.
That's
your
okay, but
statement.
let's try to get back to specific questions
Okay.
about,
What's happening?
recovery center.
I'm just hoping that everybody can kind of come to agreement. We need this. Our community needs this. I proposed areas, I feel, looking at my child, looking at everybody else's children in this neighborhood and this county, we need this. So please come together on this. Thanks.
All right, are there any other questions pertaining to the center itself or to anything, just the recovery?
Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm in recovery, and I wanted to say you guys did a really good job explaining. I don't like being up here. You guys explained so much and definitely touched me, but a couple years ago, I wouldn't have understood any of this. I would have been very fearful. I wouldn't, you just don't understand. It's just like Spanish class. If you don't, have a lesson, if you're not in it, you don't get it. It takes time. It's definitely a process, and it's a journey. I have a lot of family members who don't understand it at all, very judgmental. And I think that Medina needs this because you have people in nice suburbs and they're still using. Just because they go out to these other unhealthy locations doesn't mean their house isn't unhealthy. And I just, we learn like sex ed and health and stuff in school. Why? I just want to know, like, there needs to be some education. There has to be education with people who don't understand. I would like to see this recovery center with groups and meetings for people who aren't addicts and who don't understand, because there are a lot of people, and you could be an addict and you just are in denial. You don't know. You make excuses for yourself. I'm having my second child, but who's to say that she's not going to be an addict? Or you don't know. It just happens. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to have cancer tomorrow. You don't know. Everything happens for a reason. And I would just really like to see that, like the Al-Anon kind of thing.
The plan is, as far as the center goes, programming will be related to people with recovery, families, people that want to get educated on addiction. There'll be social activities, so knitting, crocheting, watching movies, special events. I mean, it's going to be everything like that. But a big part of the audience, I mean, our first audience is people in recovery, people seeking recovery.
Right.
The secondary audience would be family members and people from the community who want to get educated and want to get involved
Right now, it's really hard to find, like, where do I go to get this information?
Right.
So we are going to give a place that people can show up on, come inside, and start to get educated so that we can change, we can shift the epidemic that we're in the middle of today. That's the goal.
That'd be awesome. I would
Okay,
love that.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions remaining? I know everybody wants to share stories, and that's great, but we've got like time for a couple more just questions relating to the center itself or to recovery in general.
I hear a community center to help recovery and for the community. My question to you is, if people, and it's supposed to be educational, correct? Could anybody go there to learn how to put a resume together? Can anybody go? I'm not just talking addicts. Anybody in the community, could they stop in there and get help from you, not just the addict? Will it improve the whole community is my question. Or is it just if you're an addict or a drug addict, you're the only ones allowed in there?
The programming will be set up specifically for recovery people, so people specifically dealing with recovery from a drug or alcohol addiction. Would we support other people? We're not going to stop people from coming in to get help. So yes.
No, that's really important.
Yeah.
See, because
But
you're
the
not.
programming, but the problem is that it's set up so it'll be a recovery type language and recovery type needs. But yes, I mean the idea is that we're here to help. So and everybody's kind of in recovery, you know, from something. So
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, I'm in recovery.
If we can't help them there, I'm sorry, we will absolutely triage and help them connect to where
Where to go.
Yes, but the idea of the center will also be a bridge to community resources that exist. So we're not looking to replicate what's already happening in the community. We've got a lot of great stuff happening in Medina. But again, how do you get hooked up to those things? Lots of times it's a roadmap that's very difficult to navigate. This will be a place where a one-stop place where you can stop, get services there. If we can't provide that service there, then
You can direct them.
you'll be connected into the community with partnerships that we are developing. that
So
are already-
my working with recovery, we got new people trying to recover. They don't have a really good background, and with a place like yours, you would know places that would hire felons,
Exactly.
correct? You would know places that would how to accomplish GED, stuff like that, to make them upgrade their life while they're trying to stay sober, so they could be a better person in society and give back instead of take, is what you're trying to do, correct?
Yeah, you said it better than us.
Yeah.
The idea is to say, yes,
Exactly that.
we're going to stop doing drugs and alcohol, but as we know, that's just sobriety, that's not recovery. So then we're going to look at other aspects of their lives, places where people are vulnerable for relapse, financial problems, employment problems, housing problems, lack of education, criminal background. So we're going to help them to be able to meet those goals, to find purpose-filled lives, to give them meaning, and so they can give back to the community that they live in.
I think that's huge, because people in recovery, they give up
Right.
because of them blocking
There's the
them.
doors, yes.
Yeah.
Lots of closed doors.
And now there's another place that they can go to uplift their faith
Yeah.
and bring them stronger into the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have to say, whoa.
That's really loud.
First of all, we've talked about a lot of like really serious stuff here. And the one thing that I personally get really upset that we don't talk enough about is fun. And a community center is fun. There's social events for everybody in the community. There's, things for people in recovery to do. There's things that the people in the community can do. And it is a lot of the other stuff. It is about recovery and job training and resume building and all of that kind of stuff. But it also is about fun. I as a young person in recovery, when I got sober, we talk a lot about change your people, places, and things, and we say we don't know what fun is without a lot of the things that we used to do. But I'm still young and I still like to have fun, and all of you in this room like to have fun, and so we need to remember that is a really, really strong piece about a community center as well. So I just needed to add that this is supposed to be to be about fun as well.
Okay, any other, I think we can take one more question. My name's Chastity McGraw. I'm in recovery myself, and like you were saying about fun, I have a daughter that's 15. We're rebuilding our relationship together. She's going through recovery just as I am. Activities for her to be involved in as well with other children in the community. I feel, is there going to be that? Is she going to have a place there as well as I am? Without a doubt. We recognize that there is an underserved population, and that's the children.
Yes.
That's the children of addicts and addiction and recovery. Where do they go? Where do they go to talk to other teenagers, to talk to the age-appropriate conversations around addiction and recovery? What's it look like? So yes, the plan is to have those services, and the plan is also to engage in the community. So community activities that we would be a part of, right? Because then there's inclusion. We're all doing it together. It's not us versus them, or you know what I'm saying? It's hey, we're all working on this together. So they'll need that. There'll also be a place for grieving parents. So parents who are struggling with the loss of a child, to addiction, or maybe an overdose, or maybe they're gone. The child is gone and off in active addiction. A place for grandparents, another underserved population. We got a lot of grandparents that are stepping in to raise some children and helping out. Where can they go to talk about the issues they're facing? This center is going to be a platform to be able to reach all these also underserved populations in our community, because these people need help, and they are like screaming, like, help us, right? And that only gives us stronger families. It gives us a stronger community, and that gives us stronger future generations to come. So without a doubt, that's on the list.
Thank you. I have one more question. I also do a lot of volunteering with Nicole Walmsley. Tomorrow is the community trash bash. Addicts giving back. We took from our community for so long. It's important to us that we give back. We're going to be in Lodi tomorrow from 5 to 7 picking up trash. Is there going to be a place at this community where we can meet and come together and plan more events for us to be able to get back to our community?
I think that'll be an easy
100%. 100%.
The idea is that the recovery community would be a part of what the future of the center looks like. We know what we need better than anyone, and so it's, hey, where are we missing? Where can we help the neighborhood? I mean, maybe you can come around the center and do a trash bash. You know what I'm saying? Because I know you're coming to Medina as well to do that.
Right.
So it's, where are their needs? And yeah, I mean, the whole idea is it to be an open place for open dialogue and continuing conversations, not only with the surrounding community, but again, with the recovery community itself. Hey, this is working, this isn't working. There's going to be programming that's going to go like that. That's the idea.
One more thing. We do a lot with the Perry program. We place addicts into recovery or into treatment centers, and we send them all over the United States. When they come back from those treatment centers, a lot of these people are Medina County people. When they come back, would it be a place where they can come after they go to Kathy's house? Because a lot of times we start in treatment, then we go to Kathy's house. Then, or other places, Nick Bianco's house. The next step, for me, I finished all of my treatment at O.C.A.A.R. I still have a recovery coach, but outside of that, I'm coming to the end of the beginning of my recovery. What's the next step? This is it. Yes.
So this is a place where this is now a part of my life. This is a place I can come on an ongoing basis, drop in if I want, special events if I want. You sound like you're at a place where, can I lead some programming? Can I take some leadership roles? Can I get invested in the center? And then it's this beautiful process that happens where it's the recovery community really investing in itself, right, to better our community as a whole. And we're not just looking to better recovery people. We're looking, okay, how can we help Medina? You're not just going to pick up trash at addicts' houses.
No.
You're picking up trash, right? You don't know whose trash that is.
May 10th, we're picking up trash at the square for the Drug Accord Awareness event on the 11th.
Right. So that's what we're looking for, more of that. So again, we can get to know each other. We can get to know the community and the neighborhood as well. We can get ourselves out there, we can talk to people, you know, and even in the neighborhood, we would love to take suggestions. If people have, hey, some service projects around that area, that would be a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
for
absolutely.
sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a way to take one more question that I think is super important?
Yes.
Take one more super.
I'm not gonna go there because I have super anxiety. but
Okay.
I'll just talk loud.
Okay.
Are you able to focus on the stigma or show any numbers about how many addicts or how many addicts in recovery aren't dangerous, that are fully functioning, that don't have criminal past, that would never hurt people? Are you able to focus anything on that, show any kind of numbers?
Well, there's
I
20.
can speak
Go
to
ahead,
that.
yeah.
I can speak to that just because I, in reference to some of this and the concern, I think when you live it, you forget about those concerns, but those are legitimate. I think that's a common fear that people have, is what does addiction do to crime rates? And again, with the existing studies that I found, there was a recent Johns Hopkins publication that looked at crime rates, and again, this was in drug treatment centers, not a recovery center like we're talking about. And again, the distinction would be when you are in treatment, you probably don't have much recovery. A recovery center is much more people who have some lived recovery and who are, again, more focused on those things. But the research on drug centers and incidence of crime definitely shows a higher incidence, that you're much more likely to have criminal activity around businesses that, like liquor stores, convenience stores, where alcohol is served. That's part of one of the misconceptions that I think Stephanie tried to address, is this idea that, again, if you've got a treatment facility, you're going to have crime. Well, okay, are some people who have substance use disorders involved in criminal activity? I think that's true, right? Our courts can speak to that. However, when I am a treatment provider. People who are coming to treatment, some are voluntary, and I guarantee you, when people are voluntary, they're motivated. So they are not trying to cause trouble.
That's what I feel like a huge stigma is that just because there's people in recovery or people that are addicted to drugs, that they're dangerous. They're going to come out of the treatment center and they're going to come rob you. And that's not true. Not all drug addicts are dangerous. There's people that like you, fully functioning, doing everything they need to do, taking 16 credit hours, and they're going home and they're drinking. That's
Well, what I would say to that in summary is any chronic, untreated disease is dangerous to the person who experiences it. We're talking about a recovery center, and a distinction would be made. When we begin to provide people with the resources that they need to get well, we only contribute to the wellness of the individual, their family, and the communities that they live in.
Let me address one more thing real quick, because I understood her question a little differently, maybe. She asked if there was a way to predict, who would commit a crime in the addiction community. There isn't any more a way to predict that than there is a way to predict who's going to commit a crime in the general population. We saw an event this past weekend where someone was totally unpredictable, stopped his car, and took a man's life. There was no way to predict that.
That's exactly what I'm trying to focus on.
This guy was not a drug addict. He was a functioning member of society. He was a social worker. We think someone even was in the help community. Something happened.
Right.
We don't know how to predict those things. We don't know how to predict which drug addict will commit a crime and which one will not.
Right. I just think that there's a huge stigma that it's gonna be dangerous to the community. That it's just, I think that's what scares people the most.
Without a doubt. And I think it's valid concerns, and that's
Right, absolutely,
And that's
absolutely.
exactly the
But
reason.
it's not-
Yeah, it's not. There isn't. Research doesn't show that to be true. There is not a correlation between people in recovery and increased crime or danger to society. That's just not a fact. But again, a lot of times what we see in the movies, what we see portrayed on media, it can look a little bit different. But thanks for the question.
And what's
Kathy's house is in the neighborhood, and as far as I know, it's been very problem.
Right, yeah.
And
wrap up. Okay.
Not near as far as their recovery as we're proposing. Right.
So we just want to thank everyone.
Chief Keough would like to make a statement.
Okay. I can't say no to him. Okay.
Hi, my name is Keith Keough. I'm the police chief at Lodi. I just want to say that I'm a 36-year police officer. I've dealt with people in addiction on the street level all those years. And just to let you know, in Lodi, we have an active treatment center in Lodi that borders a residential area. And the first thing that they did before they opened up their doors was to sit down with me so that we could talk about safety and security issues. They have a direct line to me as far as if somebody shows up. I know somebody brought up the possibility you have somebody that's in treatment and then say the drug dealer comes into the parking lot. I've learned a lot in the last year and a half, and one thing that I've learned is if you're a treatment provider, you're very protective over your people. So we may get a phone call about, this guy just showed up, it's the ex-boyfriend trying to get at the girl or whatever. But as far as calls for service goes, it's no more now than before they were there. So, and you have a very good police department here. They've got 3 times more officers than I do. And I'm sure that, a dialogue can open up between a resource center and the police department, so.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so we just want to thank everyone for taking the time. I know it's like the middle of the day, and we really appreciate just your open-mindedness and your good questions.
I'm sorry, Mayor, would you like to say anything before we?
No, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. Appreciate your time.
Can we share Zach's story before
Yes,
we go?
we're gonna share a story, and then that's going to be the end of the event. So thank you guys very much.
We're going to share a story, and then at the end, we're going to ask you to consider participating.
Okay, thank you.
Play?
My mom was a addict. She was addicted to painkillers from the start and moved on to heroin. She passed away when I was a junior in college. My mom was a regular, suburban mom. She was, she was active in the church. She was, the president of the football club from our high school football team to, the boosters. She, you would come home from work or practice and there would be dinner on the table. Like that's just how my mom was. And we even lived right next door to my grandparents. We had chickens, cows, the whole thing, living in the suburbs out in the country. When my grandpa was in the hospital, she would take his painkillers, and I wouldn't think anything of it, or go to the dentist's office, once a week and ask for a new prescription, and the dentist filled it. I don't know when exactly she switched from pain meds to heroin, but I'm guessing it's when maybe the dentist wouldn't fill a prescription anymore, and she couldn't find it. I would come home and I would see the track marks on her arms, and I didn't know what that was, and we would ask her, and she said it was like a rash, and it's just so stupid now that I think about that. Is like, I could see, like, she wasn't hiding it. Like, she wanted someone to recognize what was happening there, and no one did. Like, no one got it. Heroin doesn't just affect the people you see on the streets or, the homeless. It affects people like my mom, the people that you see in church every day, that, the leaders in your community, the soccer moms. It really does have no boundaries, and it affects millions of people around the country and around the world. And I'm running in the run for recovery for those people, for families like mine who may not have understood what heroin is or what drug addiction or alcohol addiction is. I'm running for those families. So join my team and let's get moving.
So, any runners, join Zach's team.
I'm not a runner. I have a money like that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much for coming.